O.J. Simpson, you know, the guy found responsible by a civil jury for killing his ex-wife, Nicole Brown-Simpson, and her friend Ronald Goldman, was just recognized for his excellence and contributions to society. Yes, really. The BET channel thought it would be a good idea to include O.J. Simpson in their in memoriam tribute at the BET Awards last night. We will surely remember him all, but not as a former NFL player, as that montage put it, but as a killer who on the criminal side got away with 2 murders. Apparently many in the audience seemed stunned, and the applause actually apparently died down in person when his face popped up. Just as important, how do you think the families of baseball legend Willie Mays or civil rights activist Dexter Scott King feel after they were included in the same montage as O.J. Simpson for their contributions to culture? Has us asking the folks at BET, what were you thinking?
Been taking a lot of heat over the last few days, and so that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to start with some criticism I've received since I had the audacity, the unmitigated gall, to question the BET Awards rationale last week in paying tribute to the one and only O.J. Simpson during their in memoriam segment. The segment honored the likes of Clarence Avant, Willie Mays, Richard Roundtree, Carl Weathers, and co-founder of the Isley Brothers, Mr. Rudolph Isley himself, just to name a few people, y'all. But anyway, now people in the entertainment community have taken to social media to comment on what I said about BET's inclusion of O.J. Simpson. By the way, the inclusion of O.J. Simpson, the guy found liable for double murders of his ex-wife Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman, although during the civil trial. But before I even go any further, I just want y'all to take a look at just some of the things that I've had to deal with over the last few days, I should say the weekend, over the last few days, since the 4th of July was yesterday. Just take a look at this before I respond, so you'll know where I'm coming from.
You mad because BET is celebrating OJ? Who else gonna celebrate him? Are you fucking stupid? He was found innocent in the court of laws, the white laws.
They have these stooges like Half Stephen from Django Smith, perched up to do their work. They put them on national TV. They put them on these big stages where they can have a big audience, where their words can have some influence. And they use these little monkeys like Stephen A. Smith to say the things that they can't say publicly.
You know, I'll confess, sometimes it's really, really hard to not let that other part of this brother out of me. You know, there's just certain shit you don't say about black people. Because to Willie D, to Faizon, make no mistake about it, I'm not scared. Not even a little bit. But unlike y'all, I'm gonna remember that y'all are brothers. And so I'm not gonna go there.
All right, all praise to our Heavenly Father, the Most High Yah, in the name of our Lord and Savior. Some say Yahweh Shai, some say Yahusha, some say Jesus, right? All right, so yeah, and what we have seen in these previous clips that I showed you is what has happened is that, you know, BET Awards put up a montage, you know what I mean, in remembrance of O.J. Simpson during the BET Awards. And needless to say, the media narrative that's being spun is that BET was celebrating, you know, double murderer who got away with murder, right? In O.J. Simpson. You know, of course, you know, you can tell when the media is pushing something, because that's why I gave you two sources. You know, first you see, you know, the one guy, you know, at the beginning who comes out and says about the word montage, and then Stephen A. Smith turns around and uses the exact same word, about montages and all this type of stuff. So you can see how basically they start repeating the same thing and basically, trying to condition people to believe that, oh, black people are celebrating, this double murderer who got away with murder, right? Well, needless to say, Stephen A., because, he has basically, been exposed and everybody's been on him for all of the comments that he's constantly making about black men, which we say Israelite here, you know what I mean, in America. But anyway, about black men, and so now he's basically, lost his card that anytime you talk against, anybody black, you're going to get jumped on, right? And so you see Faizon basically jumped on him, and then Willie D jumped on him. Now, when you hear what Willie D said about it, about how they use these black puppets, Willie D called him a monkey, but how they use these black puppets to speak these messages, right? And that's exactly what happens. And I actually agree with Willie D on that, right? Because, they'll use a blackface to say something that they want to try to put out themselves, the real controllers of the media, okay? Now, in this next clip, I want you to see something that Stephen A. says. He talks about BET, right? This video is not going to be what y'all think it's going to be, so y'all watch. Because during the conversation, the only reason I'm bringing this video up is because I was talking to my brother who basically, I was telling him about what was going on with all this, and he's like, yeah, I know about that. And he was like, yeah, as far as the O.J. Simpson, it was actually a serial killer involved. That's what's been coming out. And I'm like, what are you talking about, right? So this is what I'm going to show y'all in this video. It's about how the media can push narratives or how they can suppress information. Why? Because the media is always there to affect your beliefs and affect, your judgment on matters, in this world, right? They push narratives, they spin lies. That's what they do. Okay, but now in this next clip, I want you to see what Stephen A. says about who owns BET. All right, so check it out.
Just a few days ago, rather, on this show, I believe it was Monday, if I remember correctly, I brought up the BET Awards. I understand that in recent memory, it's been a rating success. BET is no longer owned by Mr. Bob Johnson or black folks for that matter. It's basically being run by Paramount Global CBS Entertainment Group. It's being run by Scott Mills, president and CEO of BET Media Group. Connie, aka Constance Orlando. She's an award-winning media executive, recently named Executive VP of Specials, Music Programming, and Music Strategy at BET Networks. And I made sure to highlight that these two black folks, for the most part, are doing an outstanding job, right?
All right, so when we go to Google, of course, I typed in who owns BET, right? And so you see where it says Wikipedia, BET, and you see the parent organization, BET Networks, Viacom, and all that, right? It is currently owned by the BET Network subsidiary of Paramount's Global CBS Entertainment Group, okay? Exactly what Stephen A. Smith said, okay? So now let's go and see who is in control of Paramount Global's CBS Entertainment Group. Okay, so when we type in, and who is the CEO of Paramount Global, we see, while it says still to be determined who from the triad continues on in the new Skydance owned Paramount, what was made certain tonight was that Skydance Media's David Ellison will be the new chairman and CEO of the new conglomerate, with former NBC Universal chief Jeff Shell acting as president, okay? So now we see David Ellison, is really the one who's in control of Paramount Global, all right? So now let's go look up David Ellison. So we get Wikipedia and we see David Ellison. Born January 9th, 1983, is an American film producer, son of multi-billionaire Larry Ellison and the founder and CEO of Skydance Media, okay? David Ellison was born in Santa Clara County, California. He is the son of billionaire Oracle Corporation co-founder and chairman Larry Ellison and his ex-wife Barbara Booth Ellison. His father is of Italian and Jewish heritage. right? So we see, once again, who's in control of the media. All right, so now we see. So why am I bringing this up, right? What you understand about the media is that the media control, it's control. You don't get to just put on whatever you want to put on, right? BET would have never got to put that on except, that CEO Paramount, that Paramount, Global, allowed them to do that. Just because there's black people running BET don't mean that they don't have somebody to answer to, right? So, to show you what my point I'm trying to make is, remember what happened with Kyrie Irving when he just so much as put a link out to a movie? Well, when you watch what they did, they didn't even say the name of the movie. They criticized what he done, but they did not say the name of the movie, right? So now let me show y'all that.
From what I've been told, Josiah is completely done with him. He's dealing with him because he's under contract and he has to, but he's completely done with Kyrie Irving. Commissioner Adam Silver, who knows Kyrie Irving personally, who is a Jewish man, was incredibly off-put and hurt by the irresponsible rhetoric that Kyrie Irving contributed to disseminating by putting that film on Twitter, on his Twitter page.
Okay, I'm going to try to tiptoe through this just to drive home for those who don't know what Kyrie did, to try to explain it. Okay, so by posting a link to a movie based on a book, movie came out in 2018, book 2015, it appeared strongly that Kyrie was endorsing and promoting said movie and book.
Right.
And the movie is based on the book that Rolling Stone calls venomously anti-Semitic, venomously, and cites, Rolling Stone does, statements within the movie that, quote, many famous high-ranking Jews have admitted to worshiping Satan or Lucifer. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's where we start. And another description of the film on Amazon that Kyrie linked to says that the movie uncovers the true identity of the children of Israel by proving the true ethnicity of Abraham, Jacob, many others. Find out what Islam, Judaism, and Christianity have covered up for centuries in regards to the true biblical identity of the so-called Negro in this movie packed with tons of research. Okay, he's free, again, to believe all of the above.
Right.
Maybe there's some truth in that, but I don't know of it. Right. I'm just saying I
didn't see the movie and I haven't read the book.
Okay, I got you. Neither have I. I'm reciting what I'm reading.
Probably Kyrie hasn't either, but okay, go ahead.
You know what? You're probably right about that.
All right, so as you can see, they didn't say the name of the movie, and the reason is because they didn't want to promote the movie. So you see how the media is controlled, right? This was on Fox, and you see on ESPN. Two total different networks, and yet they would not say the name of the media. They would not say the name of the film. They criticized the film, but they would not say the name Hebrews to Negroes, right? And saying Kyrie Irving promoted a film, but they never even said what the name of the film was, right? So that they got a directive, right? So it's the same thing with this BET thing. What I'm trying to tell you is that they basically had to get, the okay for them to do this, because you pushing this out here, and what's the point of bringing O.J. Simpson up when you know good and well that there are going to be people that's going to come out and say, oh, you ain't supposed to celebrate him. He got away with double murder, right? Well, rather than getting into all of the Stephen A., Faizon, and Willie D., what I want to show y'all is what I came across when my brother told me that there was a serial killer involved in all this. And I'm like, I ain't know nothing about none of all of that, right? So now I want y'all to watch these video clips, and then we'll come back and discuss it.
I had waited like 12 days trying to figure out what to do. I didn't want to turn my brother in. I felt guilty about the people dying. I was utterly confused. I didn't know what to think or do.
Welcome back, listeners. And Hamilton resident Glenn Edward Rogers is top of the news for all the wrong reasons.
Glenn Edward Rogers, he's wanted by Los Angeles, California for a homicide. He's wanted in Jackson, Mississippi in connection with a homicide. He's wanted in Bossier City, Louisiana for another homicide.
He's left a trail of mutilated victims.
Come on, let's go!
Authorities warn that Rogers is armed and very dangerous.
I came to the realization I wasn't turning in my brother. I was turning in a serial killer. My brother hadn't lived there for a long time. In 1995, my brother Glenn Rogers was arrested in Kentucky, wanted for killing women across the country. Could it be my brother was really the worst serial killer America has ever seen?
Right here, how many people have you killed, Mr. Rogers? Huh? How many people?
Glenn Rogers is my brother. He said they haven't even scratched the surface. He said 70. He had murdered 70 women.
Did you do this, Glenn? Did you kill those women, Glenn? One-on-one alone. At the jail, you interview me. Did you kill the women?
And could it be my brother was the real killer behind America's most sensational crime?
Detectives from the Los Angeles Police Department sought and obtained a warrant for the arrest of O.J. Simpson, charging him with the murders of Nicole Brown-Simpson and Ronald Lyle Goldman.
So are you a suspect? O.J., are you a suspect?
Now, Glenn told me when he called, she guess who I'm partying with, Nicole Simpson. Actually, what he told me, he says, they got money, they're well off, and I'm taking her down.
All right, so as y'all can see, did you know anything about that? Right? And this guy is still living. Let's go, let me show you something. So we go back to Google, right? We type on Glenn Edward Rogers. Glenn Edward Rogers, born July 15, 1962, is an American convicted serial killer. He was also convicted of related crimes in Florida and California, such as armed robbery, grand theft auto, and arson. Also known as the cross-country killer or the Casanova killer, he was convicted of first-degree murder in 2 separate trials in the deaths of 2 women, the first in Florida in 1997 and the second in California in June 1999, right? So the bottom line is he was sentenced to death. We jump down in here, right? He was sentenced to death in both Florida and California. He has been incarcerated since 1997. So this guy is still living, right? According to a 2012 cable TV documentary, Rogers claimed that he committed the 1994 murders of Nicole Brown-Simpson and Ron Goldman, though O.J. Simpson was acquitted in a criminal trial, right? Why ain't the media had that all over the place? How many of y'all actually knew that? Because I didn't know it, right? But now let me let y'all watch the documentary, and you can watch this documentary here on YouTube.
But Glenn was now far from Kentucky. He'd gone back to California, and soon he was calling me saying he was hanging out with Hollywood types like Nicole Simpson. In January 1994, an earthquake rocked Los Angeles. About the time the quake hit, my brother Glenn showed up in town.
I was working in Los Angeles at the time. The Northridge earthquake hit earlier that year, and I was working for a company doing earthquake damage.
A few months later, Glenn risked coming back home, even though Ohio police wanted him for questioning.
In 1994, Glenn was living in L.A., and he came back to Hamilton for a visit, and that's why I decided to have a cookout and have my family over. He told me that he'd met this beautiful girl out in California, and her name was Nicole, and said that he'd done work for her in her house, and said that they went out a couple times for drinks. And he said, you know, Sean, my daughter, and her look so much alike. And he said, she's married to this football player. See, he don't know much about sports. And he said, this football player, and he's black. He's famous, but I don't remember his name. He just remembered Nicole.
I'm in my mother's house at this time, and they're already looking for Glenn. The phone rings, and I talked to him, and he asked me, so guess who I'm partying with? Nicole Simpson. Nobody knew who that was. I thought, well, who's that? Bart Simpson's sister? I mean, just joking. He said, no. That's when he told me that was O.J. Simpson's wife. Actually, what he told me, he says, they got money, they're well off, and I'm taking her down.
The body of a woman reported to be Nicole Brown-Simpson, ex-wife of football star O.J. Simpson, and a man identified as Ronald Goldman were found early this morning. Further reports from Los Angeles say the case is being treated as a homicide.
And then I saw pictures of her, and I said, that's who Glenn was telling me about.
Detectives from the Los Angeles Police Department sought and obtained a warrant for the arrest of O.J. Simpson, charging him with the murders of Nicole Brown-Simpson and Ronald Lyle Goldman.
I read how the L.A. District Attorney charged O.J. with the murders. I believed my brother was involved, but who in the hell was going to listen to me?
Meanwhile, investigators for the defense found signs that pointed in Glenn's direction.
This is where the murder happened. Straight across the street was Nicole's place. The most significant witness in the whole case was Tom Lang. Lived down the street. He came up to this corner, started to walk across the street, gave a verbal command to his dog, and he spotted Nicole Simpson. He locked eyes, as his words, he locked eyes with her, and then went that way. He also noticed a man in an angry stance right in front of her gate, and he described that person as either white, Asian, or Hispanic, but definitely not African-American. He saw a white Ford F-350 vehicle parked in the street. It would be my wish to find out who it was that was driving that Ford F-350.
Letters and pay stubs show that Glenn was living in Hollywood and working for a company fixing houses and painting across the city. As a painter, Glenn had access to a white pickup truck like the one seen at Nicole's place. And there were more clues tying Glenn to the murders.
We felt throughout the criminal case and to this day that that killer came from the world of Faye Resnick. Faye Resnick was a friend of Nicole's. Faye Resnick was a drug user, a drug abuser, a drug addict that had gone into treatment. She hung with people from a very dark world.
Glenn told me that he had set up Faye Redmond and Nicole Simpson, and they met him at a Van Nuys nightclub. He set them up to rob them. Whether or not he was going to kill them or not, I don't know. He expected just the two girls to be there. But I guess that Ron Goldman showed up.
At the time, I had my suspicions, but I didn't know how he did it or if he really was the killer. It'd be years before Glenn would say what really happened. While I was thinking Glenn had done it, L.A. prosecutors charged O.J. with the crime.
The trial began January 24th, 1995, with O.J. Simpson charged with killing his ex-wife and her 25-year-old friend, Ron Goldman. Prosecutors used a range of graphic devices to prove their case.
The animation showed the government's theory that O.J. Simpson came to Bundy, went through the front gate, killed Nicole, then struggled and killed Ron Goldman, and then left out the back gate.
But the prosecution changed their claim on how the victims had been attacked when new evidence was laid out by the coroner.
Dr. Lakshmanan said Nicole's head was slashed. She was banged against the wall and knocked unconscious. At that point, the prosecutor revealed a new theory. The murderer left Nicole and killed Ron Goldman, then came back for what is described as the coup de grace.
Well, when we first saw it, it presented O.J. Simpson as the murderer, sole murderer, in this alcove. It just didn't fit. By that time, we'd come up with the fact that there had to be more than one person.
After 8 months of evidence and 3 hours of deliberation, the trial of the century ended October 3rd, 1995.
We, the jury, in the above entitled action, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder in violation of Penal Code Section 187A, a felony upon Nicole Brown-Simpson.
6 weeks after O.J. was found not guilty, the law caught up with Glenn. It wasn't long before my brother was dropping hints about his past crimes.
First time I heard about Nicole Simpson and Ron Goldman's murder, I was in my office in Van Nuys and really thought nothing more about it. One day I did receive some letters from a prison inmate indicating that Glenn Rogers had written to him that he had met Nicole Brown-Simpson, and the inference was, and you know what else? We forwarded it immediately to the O.J. Simpson prosecutors.
Authorities ignored clues leading to my brother, and it would be years before Glenn came back to that story. Glenn wasn't going to drop hints and letters this time. My brother had learned a new trick during his years on death row: how to paint.
These are pictures that Glenn Rogers actually drew in his cell at various times during our correspondence.
At first, Glenn drew what took over his mind when crimes occurred. Then my brother started drawing hints about the blood he had shed.
At this stage of our relationship, Glenn starts to include clues and/or names and/or places that he knows I will find in a certain amount of time.
In June 2011, Glenn sent the criminal profiler a clue that linked him to the murders of Nicole Simpson and Ron Goldman.
Here you see R-O-N, and on this tombstone, you see the letters N-I-C-O-L-E. His admission of his involvement in the Ronald Goldman and Nicole Brown-Simpson murders.
After getting many letters and paintings, the criminal profiler wanted to confront my brother in person to get the evidence he needed. He paid a visit to Florida's Union Correctional Institution. Finally, years after the murder, Glenn was ready to tell his side of the story.
After I asked him that he had not sent me any specific information regarding his involvement in the O.J. Simpson case, he said, I had, you just didn't pay attention to the clues. I challenged Glenn to prove that he had actually committed the murders, that only the killer would know what the actual murder weapon looked like. And so Glenn drew this specific weapon.
Now, Glenn added a twist that he never told me. A husband's anger over a high-dollar gift that had been kept by his ex-wife was behind it all. Glenn told the criminal profiler he was paid to steal back Nicole's diamonds.
Can you show me a set of earrings that would cost approximately $20,000 about 20 years ago? O.J. Simpson allegedly hired Glenn Rogers to get into the house of Nicole Brown-Simpson and get a pair of earrings. Essentially, his belief was that they were worth $20,000. Glenn told me that OJ's instructions were that you may have to kill the bitch. Those were his exact words. Glenn Rogers explained to me that he had parked his white pickup truck, a Ford pickup truck, on a side street right by the side of the condo. He explained that OJ knew of a spare set of keys in the rear of the condo. The idea was that actually the murder would take place inside the home. Once Glenn got the keys, he then crouched down just past the front of the gate. At that moment is when Ronald Goldman walks through the front gate. Glenn Rogers realized that Ronald Goldman suddenly became an obstacle that needed to be dealt with. He struck him with a large knife, incapacitating him, and threw him against the tree. It was not something that I had expected Rogers to say. He said that upon her entering into the fray, he stabbed Nicole Brown-Simpson once, and she fainted. He charged Goldman and pushing him against the tree, where he later was found deceased. He said that he pulled her hair back to expose her neck and pulled the knife once to sever her neck to kill her instantly.
OJ, anything you can tell us?
OJ didn't want to, quote, get his hands dirty, per se, in the crimes. He was essentially going to check on Glenn's work.
If Glenn's story was true, there had to be something at the crime scene to show he'd been there. And sure enough, evidence came out in the Simpson trial that two men were there. Shoe prints spelled out a story in blood.
And the Lorenzo.
FBI agent William Bodziak went halfway around the world to find these expensive Italian shoes he said are similar to the ones that could have been worn by O.J. Simpson to commit the murders. Bodziak examined the bloody footprints found on the walkway outside Nicole Brown-Simpson's condo. They matched the soles on the exclusive Bruno Malley shoes, he said, and the size of Simpson's tennis shoes are a perfect fit.
But the shoe prints that looked like OJ's weren't the only ones there.
It's possible to identify here a design that resembles a shoe. Yes.
Nationally known forensic scientist Henry Lee identified a second set of shoe prints, what could be a mystery murderer.
By the time OJ had gotten there, two people had bled significantly onto the sidewalk.
If O.J. Simpson told me I did it, I would want to know how. You got to explain to me how you did this in less than 6 minutes and got rid of the weapon, the clothes, the bloody clothes. How did you do this? Impossible.
I'm absolutely certain that my brother Glenn killed Nicole Simpson and Ron Goldman.
I know my brother did it because I've seen proof that he was there.
Marking the first anniversary of the death of Nicole Brown-Simpson and her friend Ron Goldman on June 12, 1994. Family members wore angel pins in memory of Nicole, who had collected angel jewelry before her death.
I remember the pin. Mom said Glenn sent it to her. And when she went to trial, he wanted her to wear it.
In 2010, I'd got another letter from Glenn, and this is what it says.
At my trial,
Mom has on that black vest top, and pinned to it is a gold angel with a diamond in its hand. I sent that to Mom the day after the situation in Brentwood. It's something everyone missed. I believe that that angel pin is absolute proof that Glenn killed Nicole Simpson and Ron Goldman. The same pendant taken off her body. The same pendant that my mom wore on her vest into the courtroom in Hillsborough County Jail.
All right, so now y'all see, you know, you can see within the media, and you even got to count YouTube as media now, right? You see with a lot of the mainstream media, the people that was in mainstream media, they're coming over to YouTube. Why? Because nobody's watching all that stuff now. But here it is, OJ's dead and gone, right? And everybody wants to argue over OJ. What you arguing over him for? He's got to stand before the Most High. If he did it, you know, if he had anything to do with it, you know, he's got to give judgment and give account to that to the Most High, right? But here we got a serial killer who's saying and confessing and saying he did it. His family is saying and confessing that he's did it. And none of them major networks have picked it up and put it out there, right? They haven't, you know, completely have basically ignored all of this. Why? Because if it's true that that man had involvement in it, you know, y'all rushed to judgment to frame OJ for it when you didn't have any evidence. You let this serial killer loose, you know, for 2 extra years where he's running around killing other people. That's why I said y'all got to watch that documentary, you know? And so now you can see the law enforcement, of course y'all don't want this to get out here now. Of course y'all don't want public to get out here now. Because y'all was using that OJ thing as a way to divide white and black America, right? And now you see it's even a divisiveness within the black community, right? So the bottom line is, you know, they still using that, but you let these guys come out here, whether it's Willie D, whether it's Stephen A, whether it's Faizon, whether it's the first guy, you know, in the clip, you know what I mean? You let them come out here, that Dan Abrams, I think is what his name was, but y'all let them come out here and put out here about this serial killer involved in this murder and see how far they're gonna let that go, right? This is why I try to tell you, the media spins narratives to affect your beliefs and your thoughts. You know what I'm saying? They tell you what to think, they tell you what to believe. That's why you have to watch the media, you know what I'm saying, with a critical mind and critical thinking. You know, don't let them just give you the narrative and tell you what to think or what to believe. You have to take what they say, you know, put it through the filter of your mind to see whether or not it makes sense or it don't make sense, whether you just accept what these people are saying to be true or not, right? Because they lie. And that's what it is. They have an agenda, all right? So with that, that's all I'm making the video for. I didn't make the video to get into these guys going back and forth and yelling and saying all this stuff to each other, you know, because all that's pointless, you know? But that's part of the agenda, was to cause a commotion and cause a controversy so that we'll stay distracted, you know what I mean, fighting amongst each other rather than looking at who the true power behind the throne is and who was pushing these narratives, you know, for us to be divided, all right? So with that, thank y'all for watching. Y'all have a blessed and wonderful day. The Most High bless you. Thank you.